Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It's Francis and Nate, your two dads who are here dadding it up. It's September. We're on the downslope into autumn finally. Hopefully it's not boiling hot there in the Swiss Alps or wherever the hell Geneva is. I haven't actually looked at a map yet to see what you got going on there, but it's been a long weekend. It was a Labor Day weekend. I know you've been moving. I've been moving around too. So how are you doing? How's the new place holding up for you?
Well, Geneva's not in the Alps. Geneva is the furthest west you can go in this country. So it's basically surrounded on all sides by France.
That sounds like a threat.
Yeah, it probably was back in the day. This used to be an independent, republic, city-state, but now it's just part of Switzerland. And so if you look on the map, Switzerland looks kind of like a weird bean, and the bottom left corner is Geneva. That's the canton of Geneva, basically, and you see the lake, famously Lake Geneva in English. That's not what they call it in French, actually, but it's okay. I mean, it's hot. It's cooled off a little, but it's really humid, so it feels hotter. This place is definitely more humid than the UK when it gets really hot. Mm-hmm. It's in the 80s, probably the low to mid 80s. The daytime sun's pretty bright. It's very sunny. You can definitely see we had a little bit of rain over the weekend, and it just feels even more humid. So even though temperature wise it's actually cooler, which is great because at night you open the windows, it cools off a lot more than it did before. It's still really hot. And so, they don't have air conditioning in most places. I'd say big stores, grocery stores, the trains, etc. they do. So that's nice. Today, coming back from a series of errands with my daughter, I just went into, we had a few things we needed from this little small version of the main grocery store chains here, and there was one right by where we live, so I went in there and got a few things just because I'll get some stuff that'll make making dinner easier, and also we can just be in the air conditioning for a few minutes because that's nice, because we just come off a very packed tram that's just, it has air conditioning, but there's lots of people in it, so it's still hot. But it's good, man. Look, getting an apartment here is really hard, and there hasn't been any progress yet, but that doesn't surprise me. I went to a showing today, but it sucked. It's just not suitable in any way. I'm kind of frustrated with the person who was kind of arranging it because it's without diming him out too much, he's good in a lot of things, but it's just sort of we're willing to budge on some of our criteria if other criteria are met, but stop showing me things that meet 0 or 5. Of course, he wasn't there because he had another thing he had to go to, so I had to go and do the thing, which is, there's probably 10 people there, so I'm sure there'll be 10 applicants because it's so tight getting an apartment here. Mm-hmm. And it just sucked. It was just old. It wasn't that well remodeled. It was perfectly fine. By British standards, it would be impeccable. It had a full-on death staircase though for a toddler because it was it's a duplex apartment, so 7th floor apartment, but it was a duplex. But the stairwell was a straight shot down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no turns at all. The open wood stairs,
and not against the wall either. So it was you could brace against the wall. And I was doesn't matter how big of how many baby stopper gates you put up. She's gonna fall down there and it's gonna be bad. You can't. No, this is no way. And then I also realized afterwards there's nothing around. We'd have to get a car immediately, which you could do, but it just would be more expense. It's the money you save living in this place. And there's areas around there that aren't that bad, but this particular area from the wall, I walk pretty fast even with a stroller, and it took me 11 minutes to walk to the tram, which means a normal person would take probably 15 minutes. And there was nothing, no parks, no stores, not just single family homes, most of behind hedges, nothing. And the tram stop, nothing. You can even buy a fucking ball of water if you wanted one. So it's just one of the things this is just not gonna work. This would be so annoying that we would immediately be wanting to move anyway.
Mm-hmm. And then have to go through the whole process again.
We've got 2 tomorrow that I'm a little bit warmer on. One I think is our top choice so far, so fingers crossed. It doesn't tick every box, but it ticks the most of the ones we've seen so far, and so if we can get it, then cool. But I have some other options of people, because the person assisting us is someone that's from a service provided by Cynthia's employer, and I may just wind up being hey man, you can feel free to help us with the other things, but for housing, we're just going to retain someone else to help us, because someone referred us to a friend of theirs or someone who does this for a living who had helped them, and she and I had a conversation, and this service has been telling us over and over again that no landlord will consider my income because I'm not employed by a Swiss company. And she's that's absolutely not true. They absolutely will. There's just a sort of a form you fill out, a letter you write, and it's substantiated. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and so money's money, right?
And even though I've told our current guy this and have provided the stuff, he's still be oh, here's a great showing. And it's oh, cool. Yeah. Well, it's in the middle of fucking nowhere. It's basically in Evian. It would be an hour commute each way for Cynthia. Nothing's around there either. And it's also even below the budget limit you set. So you're obviously not taking into consideration the idea that we have 2 incomes. Mm-hmm. I'm just if you're not going to fucking listen to me, then I'm just going to find somebody else, man. Because if I have to stay a 3rd month in this apartment, it's going to cost me way more because the temporary rental is very expensive. So it's that's annoying. But I think anybody who's lived here, who's dealt with housing stuff, has probably had these experience is that like it's difficult anywhere in this country to get a place because the housing market is tight, but Geneva's the worst by far. So that's just kind of what you get. But yeah, there's just been times like, I don't know. It's very, I think it's what's frustrating is more like normally you because there's one place we applied for because I was like, well, it's not everything we want, but it's a very, really good location. And it's like, there's a part of me that's like, normally when you start kind of bracketing, like people say yes or no, and you give feedback, like you have a better idea of dialing in what they want. And we've done that. You know what I mean? So then to be like, oh yeah, what about this place? And everything's fucking wrong with it. Like, what?
This is the opposite of everything that I asked you for.
Yeah. Well, like I think I said today was like, look, for Geneva heads out there, one of the places that I got, he proposed today was like, oh, I'll make an appointment for us to see this if we can, was in Coligny, which Coligny is famous for having the Villa Diodati, which is where Mary Shelley and Percy Bysshe Shelley were staying during an incredibly cold summer in 1816, where it rained the whole time. And Mary Shelley was apparently so annoyed by George Gordon Byron that she retired to her room to get away from this annoying ass man and fucking wrote a ghost story called Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. So yeah, so Coligny is very far on the southeastern shore of Lake Geneva. It is almost as far as you can get from where Cynthia needs to go to work without getting into France, which we don't have the right to live in. So of course it's not going to fucking work. And it's just like, if we're going to live far out, why don't we live on the literal other side of the canton, which would be closer to her work? And so it's just like, what is going on, dude? Like, so that's what I'm dealing with right now. But my daughter's great. She's happy. She seems to be loving it here. Childcare is great. We got an alternate arrangement. It's working. It's not full time, but it's working. Been able to get some stuff done. She's so much healthier already, just I think from the weather being better here. Like she's not coughing at all. So like, on one hand, there are some things that are very annoying to get, kind of hurdles you have to jump through. But I know that once those are done, it'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you'll be settled in.
All of the things they say about the extremely high quality of life here, like, are true. Like, it's just it's really nice here. Shit works here. People are nice to kids here. Like, I think I've talked about this in the previous episode. They're like really nice and accommodating to kids. So it's all good. How was Labor Day weekend, which I forgot existed?
Yeah, Labor Day weekend. So I mentioned last week on the show that we were excited because we were going to take the Amtrak train out to Kansas City, about a 5-hour train ride. So we get everything ready to go. It's an afternoon train ride. We get to the Kirkwood train station. It's very nice. Kirkwood, Missouri is one of our little suburbs outside of St. Louis City. It's one of those places that it's not part of the city, but it's part of the St. Louis County and all of our weird, 90 different municipalities, each one with its own fiefdom and its own mayor and everything. Kirkwood is one of the nicer, bigger areas. So Kirkwood has its own train station. So we go out there and we park and we're getting ready and we've got everything ready to go. And we're looking at it's like, all right, train will be here in about 5-10 minutes. And it's quick. You have to get on because of where it's located. It blocks traffic completely. So like everybody has to get on real quick. And as we're looking, I'm looking at the bags and everything. And I say, okay, I've got my backpack. My daughter's got her backpack. Wife's got her backpack. We've got the 2 suitcases that has, all of our snacks and, all the things that you have to take along. And I was like, which one of these has all of her dance stuff in it? Because we're going to a dance competition. And there was that immediate look of horror in my wife's eyes of, oh shit. Because, if you forget something, you can usually get some things at the dance competition. But you gotta understand, these are in like hotel ballrooms. It's not like this is where you can go to buy all of your dance stuff.
Yeah.
People sell dance socks, people sell earrings and little accoutrements, and you can buy the dresses there, the really big shiny dresses. My daughter's not there yet, but the big expensive shiny dresses, I dread that because that's coming in the next year or two. But you can't buy shoes, and obviously they're dance shoes, so like you can't just strap on a fresh pair of shoes that you've never worn and be like, I'm going to go compete, right? You got to break them in. So
I remember being at swim meets, and it wasn't like you could buy swim things. Like you might maybe they might have goggles on sale. They probably wouldn't be the kind that you wanted, but they wouldn't have stuff like, for example, swimsuits.
They wouldn't have the Speedos there or anything?
Not typically at even like non-high school meets, even like USA Swimming Association meets. No, not really. Because normally they were held in like a university pool somewhere. And so like there wasn't a shop there. And if there were, oftentimes these were in the summer anyway. So
right. And a lot of these are vendors that are like traveling to these because So it's called a fesh. It's a dance competition, and you have to do feshes because you have to get medals in your various dances that you do to be able to rank up. So people travel all over the world, well, all over the United States to get these so that, their kids can get the medals that they need. Some, like the Kansas City one, is very competitive. And my daughter did grab a third place medal in her reel, which is the last one that we kind of needed before.
Shouts out Francis' daughter.
Yeah.
That's estimable right there.
Yeah, so she got herself a medal. We're very excited about that. The Louisville one that we did is a lot smaller, so there was less competition. She got a couple first places at that one. So, people will travel and, kind of get an idea of like, how big is this one? How competitive is it? Is it worth our time? The Kansas City one's really fun because it's also butts up to a weekend Kansas City Irish festival. So like the whole weekend outside of the hotel, there's also, there's bands playing. There's obviously a lot of beer, Jameson tents, but they also have a lot of art and a lot of Irish historical stuff. They do mass. They have like a 5 and 8 a.m. mass at the festival. So, if you're waking up from your drunken slumber, where our hotel was positioned to, like we were overlooking the whole thing. So we would hear every band all night until about 11 o'clock. And it seems like every band has the same set list that they kind of rotate. So, everybody does Rocky Road to Dublin. I heard Shipping Up to Boston. I heard Cecilia by Simon and Garfunkel done a numerous amounts of times. A lot of U2 gets played. Just a lot of like, that period of time in the 90s when like every punk band was just like, what if we took this song and made it punk? Like this is, what if we took that song and made it, bagpipey, basically. So
yeah, I mean, Cecilia is a great song, but that's an odd one, isn't it? Yeah,
it is.
I mean,
it's a strange one to be hearing belted out at like 10:30 at night at an Irish festival. I don't think Simon nor Garfunkel are either of them are Irish, but it's a good song about fucking. So, it's like a good, clean song about getting laid.
Yeah. I mean, whereas Mrs. Robinson, maybe a less clean song about getting laid.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because we live in an area of Geneva right now called Jonction in France, like Junction. And the reason why it's called that is because it's where the Rhone and the Arve River meet. So like not far from here, it's kind of this peninsula like tip, and it's the joining point of these two rivers. The Rhone, I think, originates at Lake Geneva, the Arve from elsewhere, but the Rhone is very famous in that part of southeastern France. But it's also a junction in the sense that it feels like every tram line, bus line, etc., that goes to the downtown area of Geneva, or what's kind of the downtown where the main train station is, comes through here. And it seems like there's a lot of bars and restaurants around here. It's nice, and like it's by British standards, it's perfectly fine. But however, what is different here compared to my expectation, I suppose, and my experiences in Geneva before, is people love shredding ass on motorcycles. And not at all times of night, but until about midnight, which is pretty late by Swiss standards. This is a very rules country. This is you can make as much noise as you want, but not after 10 p.m.
Sure.
And not before 7 a.m.
That's good. We need that.
Yeah. And sometimes, depending on where you are in the country, they might be fussy about you can't make noise between 12 and 1 p.m. on weekdays too. I don't know. There's all sorts of things. Like it's changing, but I can go into some stories I've heard and things you want to avoid about like in the olden days, people would call the police on you for like fucking flushing your toilet at night level of, that's way more of a German tendency or stereotype, but
is it the Germans being mad that you're making the poop go away?
No, it's the Swiss German. There's just this notion of like, you do not make noise. And if you're in a building with lots of old people, they may still complain about this. Whether or not it's enforceable, I don't think anyone really cares. And, but by and large, like, here's the thing. We don't do laundry or run the vacuum on Sundays because like you'll get complaints from people.
Sure.
It's genuinely like you don't make noise like that on Sunday. That's just a thing you don't do.
It's the Lord's Day. No working.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is also, I think it's true in the Catholic cantons too, but this is like not just a Protestant canton. This was like they called it Protestant Rome because it was basically like it was kind of a theocracy under John Calvin. Like it was not practically, it was fundamentally, it was a theocracy. Yeah, they were burning people at the stake for blasphemy, like not blasphemy in the sense of like, oh, you said a swear word on Sunday, but like blasphemy, like your interpretation of religious doctrine disagrees with ours. And so they like, it was a theocracy.
Yeah, that's Calvinism.
Yeah. So the whole thing about Calvinism started here, but also everywhere around the countryside around Geneva has always been Catholic. Some of it has always been part of France since France existed as a country, or, there were kingdoms of France, separate kingdoms. Some of it was Savoy, which was an Italian kingdom, and they wound up ceding their land to France in the 1860s, I believe. Like Nice, the city of Nice in France on the Mediterranean coast was an Italian city for a very long time. But yeah, you don't make noise here. So what's interesting for me is that like when the windows are wide open because it's been really hot, I was like, fuck, it's loud as hell, like louder than I thought. And Switzerland, it can be a unsettlingly quiet country. So it's weird. It's more like this was a thing I wasn't expecting. I mean, it's woken me up a few times. I'm just getting used to it because it's a new place. You know what I mean? But I guess in some ways it's less annoying because like they do stop, like the bars close, the restaurants close, people stop making noise. Whereas in Britain, like you're more on neighbors having parties, like they could go on till 7 a.m. and taking drugs and screaming all night, and like go ahead and try calling the cops. They don't care. No one, you can't do anything about it. Like Britain, like I said, Britain is a police state, except they've cut the state so much that crime is now legal. But I feel you on the oddness with music, sound, noise, etc. They love live music in the French-speaking world. Like, and it tends to be like, it doesn't have to be like popular music. It just has to be of a certain quality. But like, we happen to be walking on Saturday through, there's this festival going on in a nearby park. And it's like mostly a local wine festival, but we saw some people selling empanadas. So we bought them there. We weren't drinking, but we had, I mean, the white wine in this part of the country is incredible, but I just wasn't, it was hot enough. I was already tired enough. I was like, I really don't need to fucking drink white wine and then fully be like in syrup mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's catch a full buzz at 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm already sweating my ass off. I'm too old for that shit.
No, I can't. I've had like, I got one little mini bottle of wine that it took me like 4 days to drink here just to have some when we first got in, and I haven't bought any since. But we you know, like they love live music, so it's definitely a thing you'll hear a lot. I'm trying to think if there's anything that's like for my weekend. So I took the train, but I successfully made it onto the train.
Well, I did get to take the train back. Like,
okay, cool.
I got to go. I had to go home and grab everything that we needed. Then I had to drive to Kansas City, and I didn't quite beat my wife and kid because, like I said, they were getting on like right when I was leaving. So, and then I had to go home. I had to take care. We had a pet sitter, but it was like, well, I might as well take care of the animals while I'm home. And then Labor Day traffic trying to get out of St. Louis of all the people with giant boats trying to get down to the lake or get to, you know, some other going somewhere. And I got stuck with all of that, but I did manage. I jumped onto the highway and went out, and my wife was just like, yeah, she said, I'll do the drive home. You can take the train, which the weekend was fine. I am unfortunately at a place now where if like I'm not sleeping in my own bed, I'm just not getting a good night's sleep. And also I accidentally drank milk and I had to lay down for a couple of hours on Sunday. And the accidentally is because I normally make my own coffee in the morning because I work from home, but you know, here there's a Starbucks. So we're ordered Starbucks, and I didn't say, you know, hey, don't put milk in it, put oat milk or put some other kind of non-dairy creamer. So that kind of fucked me up. And then, so the whole ride home, I was fine. I felt fine, but I was just tired, and the train experience is great. Like, I loved that I didn't have to do much, and I like that I can get out to parts of Missouri like Washington, Missouri. Herman, Missouri is a very German area of Missouri. They got a lot of wineries and brew houses there. Missouri, very big wine country. Missouri loves its wine. We got a lot of Germans here that make wine, and it's a nice way to go, but I wasn't feeling it that time. But we will probably go up to Chicago, take the train to Chicago at some point in the next couple of years or so. Just, you know, if it's all three of us, I think it'll work a lot better. But, and also my wife was just like, oh, I get to sit in the car in silence for 4 hours. This is great. I can listen to an audiobook and not have to, you know, be bothered by anybody.
Yeah, Cynthia had the idea because she used to live in Lausanne, which I think I told you is it's like the nearest city, and depending on if you have an express train that doesn't stop or you have a train that makes all the local stops, it can be like anywhere from I think 32 to 58 minutes from the main Geneva station. Mm-hmm. And because she lived there, she had a point that on Sunday it was hot as blazes, and so we went to the Olympic Museum because it's been renovated and it has air conditioning, and the train has air conditioning, and the train also has the jungle gym play area for kids. Mm-hmm. And so we, you know, took our daughter up, and she's too little to play on the stuff, but it's like a good place to have your kids around because like people aren't bothered. People know sitting there, like, especially on a Sunday midday, like it wasn't busy at all between Geneva and Lausanne. So like people sitting up there, it's more like, well, it's kind of part and parcel. There's a big icon with a fucking teddy bear on the train. Sort of like, this is the kids' car. Mm-hmm. And so
this is where you can make noise.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it was easy. So we went to Lausanne. I've been there before. It was actually the first place I spent any time when I visited here, when Cynthia was interviewing for this job she currently has 2 years ago. And so we went down to, it's very, very funny. There's an area on the waterfront. If you go basically straight down this hill from Lausanne main station, and in French it's ouchy, but genuinely, if you were to look at it in English, it's ouchy. It's Ouchy. So ouchy, that's not funny to a French person, but to us. And I'll be honest with you, like, not only are some of the names here funny, they're funny. Sometimes they're funny in French. Sometimes they're funny as a native English speaker. Sometimes they're bizarre because French people love to name businesses things that they think sounds cool or interesting in French, or in English rather, or it's like a pun for how it sounds, how you'd say it in French, like how you'd say an English word or English sentence with a French accent, but it's bizarre. For example, near us, there is a tattooing and body piercing shop called Tribe Hole because tribal sounds like tribal, but
sure,
because you don't pronounce the H, right? But Tribe Hole does not sound. There's a skateboarding shop called The Shit. There's just, they love doing a weird apostrophe thing to join two words. Like, there's a place called Burb Hair, like Berber, like it would be like kind of like the word for Berber, where like the people, the non-Arab kind of indigenous population of North Africa. But Burb Hair just seems weird.
The Burb Hair.
Burb Hair. There's also some things that are funny just because they're Swiss names that probably come from different the pre. Like they're not like pre-Latin languages. They're typically languages in this part that are like all descended from Vulgar Latin, but they're not the same as Standard French. And so there's a town in the French part, I think it's Passe Lausanne, called Palaisieux, which when you pronounce that sounds like you're saying not the eyes in French. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, we took the train. We went to the Olympic Museum. We had time to have a little snack, got to little croque monsieur sandwiches and a coffee and some sparkling water, and sat on the terrace restaurant with our daughter and took some great pictures, and then took the train home, and it was nice. You know, it was wonderful. It was really, really nice. On Saturday, we went and saw some friends. They had us over for like a welcome to Geneva kind of brunch. They made us pancakes, which is incredible. And gave us reassurances that there is a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of eventually getting an apartment that's good. So, you know, like it's all going all right. I love taking the train in Switzerland. Like it's not cheap in Germany, you can take trains for way cheaper. I think I spent like the equivalent of like $100 for round trip tickets in total for the two of us. Mm-hmm. But in the grand scheme of things, like by Swiss standards, that's probably not that much. But like some things, like I said, it can be cheap here, cheaper than the UK. Some things can be really expensive and still like by any standard expensive. But it is funny that you mentioned milk because I'm living La Vida Loca right now, dude, because this is the only country where I can actually have milk. Like, it doesn't bother me. It genuinely doesn't bother me. Like the first day I was like, maybe my stomach was a little iffy. Now it's fine. Can have milk, can have, you know, like milky, like kind of like more liquidy cheese products, can put cream in my coffee. The milk is insanely good quality here. Like it's weird because all the produce, all the stuff you buy, if it's not made in Switzerland, if it's not produced in Switzerland, it's massively marked up because they do a lot of protectionist stuff to kind of protect Swiss agriculture. But like, so I bought a chicken at Denner, the not expensive grocery store, and it was like $14.50.
Jesus, is this a pre-cooked, like a rotisserie chicken?
No. This is a raw, like roaster chicken.
You guys need a Costco.
Yeah, it's just the Swiss equivalent of Costco is getting in your car and driving across the border and doing your shopping in France or Germany or Italy. Mm-hmm. I will say it's the quality of stuff still surprises. Like I didn't have anywhere near as much of like the tricks that I normally would have for making a roast chicken, but I have salt, I have pepper, I have vegetable oil. I seasoned it. I left it basically rubbed it down and seasoned it and then put it in a Ziploc bag in the fridge for 36 hours and then roasted it tonight. Just stuffed it loosely with like carrots and onions and some apple slices and then used the same mixture to put like a bed of stuff on the roasting pan and roasted it. And then I also chopped up some potatoes. And then at a certain point when I had a lot of drippings in the pan, I poured some of them off to cover, add a little bit onto the potatoes. And I bought some grocery store pre-made spinach and ricotta ravioli and then just made some pesto with pine nuts and basil and olive oil and salt and brother. Oh my goodness, it was so good. Like I'm cooking so much now because it's so fucking expensive to eat out here. And your delivery options, like they are better than they used to be, but like it's mostly fast food style stuff. It's not going to be like, you're kind of spoiled in the UK because like you can get lots of really good stuff delivered. But no, I'm cooking like basically every day. We're having family meals like we haven't really been able to. Like it's been great, honestly. Like I just want to solve this problem with getting us an apartment that works for at least like, a year or two, because I don't want it to move again. But we've got to get like situated, and so much stuff will just get easier when we have to get our apartment, and then we have to get our actual paper permits, but we're still waiting on the biometrics appointment. And then we have to get bank accounts, and we can get cell phone. I have a Swiss number, but it's a prepaid. Like I have to get an actual cell phone contract. Once that's all done, I can probably speak to a consultancy about starting the process for registering my own business, to get on the wait list for state-sponsored daycare. But like, in a way, it's like I got that Swiss number, I got the prepaid thing. I managed today to get us signed up for health insurance. And with the childcare, with the health insurance, with arranging all this stuff, the interesting thing is I've had to have, like last week, even more conversations entirely in French. And it's been fine. Like I actually feel like, I don't know, man.
You're getting your frog legs back?
Yeah. Well, here, what's funny is that the challenging part is when you've just switched back into it.
Right.
Like when I'm dropping my daughter off, like I'm not typically talking to people on the train ride, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I get there and I have to speak French, and like I have to warm up a little. But then like today, I had to go speak to this guy. He actually came over and visited, and we talked through everything on the insurance sign up that I'd done. Basically, he talked me through some things and mentioned some stuff, and we got like everything agreed to what we needed, and we got him the documentation he needed. And so we are signed up for health insurance. And then when I went to go pick my daughter up and then go to this viewing, like I had just spent an hour speaking French, only French with this guy. So then when I went and talked to the childminder and her mom, it was totally fine. Like I felt like completely fluent, you know what I mean? Like not fluent, but like I wasn't stammering.
Sure. Like you're thinking in French. You're not just translating. Like I need to tell them I will pick up the kid at 6:00. So I need to say this, and this. Like,
yeah.
Now it's more of a natural kind of speaking.
Yeah, but it's like a day-to-day thing in the sense that like when I hang out with Cynthia for a while, like we are obviously only speaking English. And so when an event pops up, we go to a restaurant, we go to a store, we have to ask a question, whatever, like then I have to kind of switch back. And that's the moment of like, I'm like remembering it. But I mean, the guy today was really, he was very kind. I almost said he was very gentle because the gentility is nice in French. This is what it does to your brain. There's so many cognates and so many false cognates. Oh my goodness. But
how do you say strawberry in French?
Fraise.
Okay, so we're not going to have that problem.
No strawberry. No. You're not going to get.
See, that's the thing. As long as look, we mangle the French language here in I say here in Missouri, everywhere up and down the Mississippi River, everybody mangles the French language. The Louisiana is the worst offender of it, especially with Creole. But as long as I don't hear aluminium out of you,
but I never said aluminium. I said strawberry one time, and I realized like, oh my god, I can't believe I said that. But yeah, my brother has listened to a lot of my various shows over the years, and he says that he has perceived sometimes a change in my accent, and certainly when I'm around like people with English accents on like TF, that there's certain things, whether it's just the fact that I'm using Britishisms or the fact that I'm around it, like that he can hear little differences in my accent, that he doesn't recognize. But if anything,
for the most part, you still sound like a Midwestern, like you have that Midwestern non-regional dictation kind of accent,
and that's not really going to change. Honestly, we're pretty harsh on folks who do have their accents changed. But I would say this, like if you were like 18 and you started college in Britain and you stayed in Britain, you got a job there, or you married a British person, like, and you were mostly around people with English accents or Scottish accents or so on and so forth, like it would make sense that not just you pick up the terms they use for things, but that things might change because like you're just around it so much. Mm-hmm. I think for me, the fact that, my wife's American, and amongst my coworkers, one of them is Canadian, and his accent hasn't changed at all.
I had no idea Riley was Canadian the first couple of times I listened to him. Like
Do you have like a giveaway? Because I didn't either when I first started editing TF in 2018, and then
my giveaway was somebody mentioning he's Canadian. But like I know that's like other Canadians will, especially middle Canadians, right? Like the not necessarily
Prairie Province Canadians, it's dead giveaway, yeah.
Right, but
people from like Ontario and English speakers from Quebec, like it's not that different from American English. It's just there's a few little tells, and when those come up, they're pretty obvious. A boat is one of them. It's pretty subtle. It's not like the big stereotype a boot kind of thing, but but like I do remember watching a video where a guy was like, yeah, we're building a bridge and you see traffic coming here from the south, and I was like, oh my fucking God, you're Canadian. It similarly happened like a repair video, and I said it about 20 seconds in. I was like, oh my God. Riley was like, I sent it to him. He's like, dude, 4 seconds in, I knew this guy was Canadian. So there are some tells, but weirdly, people from urban Vancouver to me don't sound any different than people from like Seattle.
Yeah, I listened the guys podcast. There's one of the co-hosts is from Vancouver. Could not even tell you that. Absolutely no tell whatsoever.
My friend Dan Beckner, who's the musician and former host of Bottleman when before the show went away because Dan got busy in the various bands he's in. He's from Vancouver Island, but he grew up in a small town like basically out in the woods, and he's got a very, very, to me, prominent Canadian accent. I remember like their first episode, like, let's talk about Canada. We're talking about X. We're talking about Y. And I was like, it's as if you were just like, hey, I'm just throwing down the gauntlet of like, no one is more Canadian than I. But yeah, I mean, I think it was 4 or 5 episodes in editing TF, there was in a boat or something like that. Something about, I was like, oh, I thought he just was an American who sounded like Keanu Reeves. But then I was like, no, he's got to be Canadian. And sure enough, he
doesn't have a head injury. He's Canadian.
Also, it's funny because one of my MFA classmates was Canadian, and I didn't notice it at first, but then like there were those exact same tells about thing and sorry and stuff like that. Sorry. Yeah. And so
the 3 hours that I spent in Canada and the one Canadian that I spoke to right outside of Niagara Falls was super Canadian. Like, oh, you guys are lost, eh? But that's also kind of a Minnesotan accent. Like Canadian and Minnesotan. Like that's where I get tripped up, is that if I don't and a boots will tell me that you're Canadian, but an A or sorry will tell me that you might be Minnesotan.
You might be from the upper Midwest or like, the Dakotas and stuff like that.
Right. Which is, I mean, kind of the same, brushing up against the border there. It's obvious there's going to be some crossover in that as well. But
Riley or Milo had a landlord in London who was Canadian from like Edmonton. And one time he was out smoking a cigarette outside and the guy was like, oh, going out for a rip, are you, bud? It's like, yeah. He's that Canadian. Yeah. So, it's
super nice people. Super nice people. Never met an angry Canadian except for like the really racist ones, which definitely exist. But
Canada produces a ton of racists and then they just go become YouTubers in America. Yeah. I mean, Canada, I think I have some perhaps harsher judgments of Canadian stuff from having edited The Bottom in all these years and read all the stuff about Canadian politics and heard them talk about it. And then also when you see like how Canadian politics works and the system there and then friends' experiences there, like it's certainly like they really love kind of selling themselves as like, well, we're not America, so therefore you're a utopia. Right. But I will say that like individuals, Canadians tend to be, in my experience, very, very nice, very kind people.
Yeah, less guns and more healthcare, and I can understand you. Like that sounds
also
beautiful.
mega closet Anglophiles.
Yeah,
they don't advertise it as much, but they are so into like we're actually part of the Commonwealth. Like genuinely, it's
I know that they are not. They remain unkind to their First Nations people. I mean, not that America is like super great about it either, but I feel like we at least was just like, this is the reservation and this is yours and we're not going to, like, federal laws don't touch. I don't know how it works in Canada, but like everything I read about how Canadians deal with, handle their First Nations people and work with their First Nation or don't work with their First Nations people is just way more.
One of the things that's really fucked up about native reservations in America that I think a lot of people don't know, and I learned this for the first time living in Alaska, is that like, they have sovereignty and their own systems, but like a lot of times their cops are white people who are typically unemployable as cops elsewhere because of like abuse convictions and all sorts of fucked stuff. And so I think the, indigenous reservations is being the kind of place where like the absolute worst white Americans can go and take advantage of the situation. Like that's pretty common. That's definitely the case in native parts of Alaska. I would say I've heard a lot of problems from Canadians talking about like how if you don't live in a big city, like the healthcare system is becoming more and more unmanageable because the Canadian government's like, well, we'll just do telehealth and also fuck you. But I think that's kind of like the crisis of neoliberalism in general, which is not to say, oh, socialized medicine is bad. It's just more like Canada has been run by, the Liberal Party is basically the government party forever until they fuck up so bad that Canada elects Brian Mulroney or Stephen Harper, and then they fuck things up worse, and then everyone's mad again, and they vote in the Liberals again. And, so it's like Canada's political system is in some ways like less representative than America's, which is saying something because the Liberals constantly lose the popular popular vote, but win because of the distribution of the vote. So yeah, it's not great. I mean, I don't know a ton, like I said, I'm not gonna pretend I know a ton about it, but I know even less about Switzerland, but Switzerland is a really interesting one because the system can't be replicated anywhere else. It just wouldn't work. And one of the reasons is it's just because to do with the history and the way this country works, but like at a fundamental level, you elect members of the assembly, and the members of the assembly are allocated a certain number of seats for the federal council. So there isn't really a president. There's a presidential council, and the actual president is just a figurehead. And I believe it's 7 seats now. And so like based on how many people have won over the course of like a period of time, they determine how many seats going to get allocated to each party. So your representatives that you voted for then elect their members to go to the federal council, and the federal council basically convene, and then they decide stuff, and no minutes are published or written down, and their decisions can't be appealed. And it's like mega like consensus and stability, but like it's like fully, it goes before like Dr. Doom's fucking hidden chamber. And that's how the government works here, which stops a lot of dumb shit from happening, but also stops a lot of like actual genuine change that people want from happening as well.
Sure. It's kind of deadlocks the government into...
Well, yeah, I mean, it stops the SVP, the Schweizer Volkspartei, or here it's called the Democratic Centrist Union, which is very in the French part, it's called the UDC, but it's the same party, the SVP. They are the extreme far right party, or at least the one with the most representation. And like they're constantly doing referenda for like, let's exit the free movement zone, let's exit Schengen, etc. Switzerland's not in the EU, but is a member of the European Economic Area, the Common Market, the Schengen free travel zone, stuff like that. And so they had like their own Brexit, and it won. And the federal council was like, yeah, we're not doing that. And that was the end of it.
We're going to do it in a different way kind of thing.
Well, the way they did it was basically like, we're going to basically create more protections to sort of like reinforce the fact that employers should prioritize trying to find Swiss candidates before hiring foreign candidates. But the referendum was like, let's leave Schengen. And so people can't come here just on Schengen visas. And it's like, well, if they did that, then they'd lose basically 25% of their workforce. And this is like one of the oldest countries in the world in terms of median age. So do you think that, but in Britain, they would. In Britain being racist is more important than making money. And in Switzerland, they love being racist, but they love making money more.
Sure. You can't just make all your money off of clocks and chocolate without...
watches, chocolate, pharmaceuticals, precision manufacturing.
The Midwest of Europe.
I mean, Novartis, man. I mean, like they've got a huge pharmaceutical industry, a huge like industrial chemical industry, stuff like dyes, like precision manufacturing, to some extent stuff, services and stuff like industrial services and architecture and things like that. Obviously watches, chocolate, dairy, tourism, but yeah, like the sort of big and finance, but like just ye old dumping ground for fucking illegally purloined money. They've got really good privacy and transparency laws. Basically by that, I mean really, really good privacy protections and bad transparency. So this is very much like, it's not a country you can do tax dodging in by any means, but it's a country where if you've done tax dodging in, wherever you're from, you can stash your ill-gotten gains here, and like the law basically doesn't let them ask questions.
Right. You do your tax dodging in Ireland, and then you take the money and you put it in Switzerland. Yes.
And it's very funny because people are like, oh yeah, you fancy fucking bougie ass Nate, you and your Swiss bank account. It's like, yeah, my Swiss bank account that I haven't been able to open one yet because I don't have my residence permit, but like I have a bank balance in francs that I use to buy groceries with. It's like, yeah, my Swiss bank account, going down to my Swiss bank, I'd get money to pay the babysitter and to go to dinner and Migros and Cope. And I don't know, maybe I'll treat myself to something really fancy. I'll go to Boreal Coffee and get an iced latte. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, man. I mean, it's like, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as a time capsule of stuff, when I think about where we were when we started the show, we said that last week, but like it just keeps getting stranger, and maybe I'll keep slipping up.
You keep getting further and further away from me. Look, one of these days, God willing, the creek don't rise, we'll be able to do my wife really wants to go to England. She wants to tour the British Isles. I want to do France at some point. And, it sounds like all these places are just kind of, a hop, skip, and a jump away from, where you are or where Joe is. So, so I don't know. What I'd really like to do is try to find some way to do this, along with doing a live show with any of the shows in the Nate Pathé extended universe. But because that's what I always lose out on is I can't do a live show because I live in St. Louis. Nobody's coming to watch me regardless, and also I don't have a co-host to do this with. So
yeah, I mean It's funny. Joe is about.
We could have done one at the federal penitentiary in Terre Haute. We could have done our own Folsom Prison Blues podcast.
Podcast about Eugene Debs, and Timothy McVeigh being an asshole. I mean, it's Timothy McVeigh is basically, it's like, this is why you got to make sure when you send your soldiers to selection, they're prepared, because you don't know psychologically how they're going to react if they fail out of selection, and they might become the Oklahoma City bomber. Yeah, man. I mean, I would love to link up. I mean, it's funny because like I have to go to London on Friday and spend the next week there solo, just handling, moving, and getting rid of stuff. And it's like, it's an hour. I think once you take off, it's an hour and 15 minutes in the air to get to London from here.
That's not bad.
I told you that Paris is a shorter flight than that, but it's also like a under 3 hour train because the train's really fast. And Paris to London is like a 2 hour and 15 minute train. It's just that because of how annoying Eurostar and how expensive Eurostar is, like I wouldn't do that. But if, like I said, in an alternate universe where life in England wasn't as annoying as possible, it would actually be super easy to get around via the train. But here, I mean, yeah, man, it would be cool to link up, come out here, you can take a little boat on Lake Geneva, you could take the ferry to Evian over across the border from Lausanne, go see Evian, the place the bottled water is named after, Evian-les-Bains, the spa town. Go
drink directly from the lake that the Evian's bottled from.
Well, it's funny because there's a brand of sparkling water called NEA, but it's spelled like HENNIEZ, and it's from a town in Vaud, the canton over from Geneva. It's really good. Cynthia's like her preferred brand, and of course bringing this up because for one, it's funny because it kind of looks like Henny, I don't drink Hennessy anymore. I just drink NEA, but also NEA is the town, like. It's very typical of rural Swiss French canton in the sense that like 70% of the population voted for the far right party, but they had 40% turnout, which amounts to 68 people. Like, yeah, it's
all the racists showed up, but none of the normal people did.
Well, yeah, but then Lausanne is like such a far left city in terms of who it elects. It is very much like average Lausanne voter undecided between three different revolutionary socialist parties, and then like average rural voter is like, yeah, I actually would vote for the SVP, but I don't think they're racist enough, so I'm just going to stay home. Like
that sounds very Missouri in some ways, where we have like this Republican supermajority, but we're constantly voting down things like right to work. We're probably going to vote for abortion in our constitution, and everybody's just like, man, it would be really great if the rural areas were able to have something to deal with the opium crisis and deal with like the rising crime in rural areas and the complete decimation of the factories and everything out in these areas. But no, we got to do culture war stuff. We got to be mad that a transgender wrestler is wrestling at a high school.
The UDC does have some representation in Geneva City Council and in the canton of Geneva, so like they'll introduce things like we're going to ban the burkini in Geneva pools and stuff like that, and it's just like, man, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, having had some glancing experiences with encountering Europeans with the old-timey European racism, like it is like cartoonishly overstated, and like they'll be like, oh, Europe has fallen about the most benign thing. Like, so yeah, it is just a different world. But Francis, I wonder if we have an Ask a Dad question.
We can do that. We can do one really quick. There was one that I saw that was, if you want to get started with a garden, what are your basics? And you're looking for new places to live, possibly having a garden or some kind of area to grow something, maybe perhaps, maybe not.
On a balcony, maybe you could grow some plants. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like don't want a garden anymore, just because I realized I got so busy, and the garden was just a constant reminder of the big fucking mess, because like I don't have the time or the energy to handle it. But I would say
I'm there. I'm kind of there too, with my garden.
Dealing for me, like, because if I'm just gonna have a balcony, I might like try to like get some plant potters and grow some herbs. I would say for me, I think that growing, one way to start is if you have a space where you can grow stuff at all, and the climate suits it. If you have those like grocery store pre-potted herbs, most of them are going to die because like they're grown in greenhouses, and they have like a shock effect when they get taken out. But I have found that if you plant those in good weather and you actually water them and fertilize them appropriately, especially stuff like parsley, will take very quickly. And I fucking love me some flat leaf parsley. It's incredible. And it's pretty hardy. Basil is a popular one, but basil is a plant with weak genes, unfortunately. It's also meant to be grown in hot weather. So
it's one of those low T plants.
Well, it's just more like basil. A lot of plants, once they're mature enough, can survive a cold snap decently well. Basil can't, as I learned in England, where it's basically almost always too cold to grow basil. Mm-hmm. And if you put covers on the plants at night, that'll help. But then it's like an on-ramp for like the slug train. So the hater worms, yeah, they love destroying good things. They love eating the stems of your basil to kill it, but not even eating the flavorful leaves. They're not eating the thing because they want to eat it. They're like, no, I just don't want you to have a nice thing.
Mm-hmm. I would say that the biggest thing is not necessarily something to have, but just to, if you're starting a garden, be okay with failure. Be okay with...
yeah, 100%. It could be like me and plant a bunch of seedlings and then be like, at least one of my basil plants survived. And then you bring it in and realize that no, it's a kind of very, very common and very hardy weed that has germinated in the plant potter where all your basil seedlings died. Yep. That will happen.
It took over everything. Yeah. But just, be okay with growing something and it dies and not getting discouraged, I think. And there's a lot of easy stuff to grow. Like if you've got the room, tomatoes are real easy to grow. And, I'm a big fan of cherry tomatoes because I'll just pick those off and have a bowl of those and eat them.
Also, it's amazing if you grow tomatoes successfully, how much better they taste if you are able to grow them yourself in good weather and like they ripen fully.
When you can take a tomato directly off the plant and put it in your mouth, it's the greatest tomato you've ever had.
Yeah, because I remember having this. My first experience with this was actually in Afghanistan, having like locally grown tomatoes in August and September when they were, right off the vine. And it was just like, if you drank the Coca-Cola flavor concentrate from the vending machine, from the drink machine, like level of like that much incredibly good tomato flavor as opposed to like what you're used to. Yeah, I would say, honestly, I think the biggest thing is like if you want ornamental plants because you like looking at them, then do that. If you want plants that you're going to cook with, do that. For me, I think I never really tried to grow anything ornamental. I always wanted to grow my own herbs and vegetables. I will say that if you have land, just bear in mind that like if you grow, for example, cucumbers, maybe plant one or two because you will have a fuck ton of cucumbers and there's only so many times you can give your neighbors bags full of cucumbers.
You only need one cucumber plant and you only need one zucchini plant.
Yeah.
And you better be ready to eat the shit out of some zucchini because it's going to give you a bunch of it.
I'm a huge zucchini fan, but weirdly my daughter is. We cook it, just no seasoning or anything, just steam it in a pressure cooker, little slices of it. She gobbles it down. She loves zucchini, carrots, zucchini, potatoes, etc., that kind of thing. So I mean, like I would just say go with the thing that interests you, and yeah, I mean, like Francis said, be prepared for failure, and I would say maybe look at some things that are like famously easy to grow in the beginning. I did so well with grocery store potted parsley that I actually was able to harvest my own seeds from one of them that I let go to seed and then plant the next year's crop. So like, it's all out there for the taking.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find more on our Patreon. Recently released another Deadliest Warrior episode. This one, the Spetsnaz versus Green Berets. I had Joe and Carrie from the Zoo Crew on to talk about that one. You can also pick things up in the store. Our new store is whatahelofawaytodad.com. Apparel. There's an attic of like fun little things that I pick up at secondhand stores and then sell. And of course, patches, pins, stickers, and whatnot. $5 a month gets you access to everything on our Patreon. 3 episods a week is 3 episodes a month is what we shoot for. Yeah,
we really planning on doubling down the recordings. Jeez.
Not unless we're going to get a lot more money. But thank you all for listening. We do appreciate your support in whatever way that you can give it to us. We are the two dads for you. If you have questions, if you if you got a Hey Dad question, you can always email the podcast at sergeantjoker@whatahelofawaytodie.com, or you can ping me on Twitter at ArmyStrang, or jump into our Discord, one way or the other.
Yep. And otherwise, we'll talk to you next week, but have a good one.